Hello, good people. Welcome to another edition of Off the Deep End, a Deep Listens podcast where we explore role-playing video games in depth. My name is Jeff Rude, the host and the Metropolis Part 2 of this operation. Joining me from Mountain West, the leftoverture of the show, Braden Arbitrary Water Redacted. Hello, Braden.
Hi, I'm here to tell you, all of you out there, that whenever I recommend games I actually like to people, they're like, oh, that game sounds crazy. But when I am talking in a Discord at length about, like, hey, this anime titty game might be an okay video game, but boy, it sure is problematic. Everyone's like, oh, I need to check this out for myself.
Also joining us from his own titty game expeditions, I'm sure, the Tarkus of the show, Chris Zombie Pie Redacted. Hello, Chris.
Oh, no, actually, my name is Gino, that Pinguino Grieco, and I don't like people who have different opinions than mine, and I don't like the CRPG genre for being irreducibly complex. I like my own complexity, like the gem system in Final Fantasy IX.
Hi, I'm Gino. I care about cards.
Yeah, cards, the best mechanic. Put it in every game.
The only mechanic I am willing to learn is cards, because I learned that when I was 17, and I have no time to learn new mechanics. I just want story-based narratives about sad
Everything that's
indie
important
musicians.
to the story needs to be on the mainline path. No side quests. Don't like that.
Except for in Final Fantasy, where
except,
it's okay.
Except for the one where the bird randomly pecks spots in the ground. I'm not litigating this. I like Gino. I
like Gino.
I'm at the point in my life where cards are almost a legitimate trigger. I just fucking hate them. I don't want to... I can't... I am entertaining the idea of playing this alleged good Inscription game, and I think I'm just at the Jeff Gerstmann point where I'm like, but it's got fucking cards. I'm not. I can't. That's probably a bad position to be in. I've heard other things. I think I've just let someone tell me what happens in that game, and it sounds good. I just don't want to play it like 0%. Just don't want to touch it at all.
It's okay. There's a podcast you can listen to.
Yes. Yeah. Speaking of, if you'd like to be a part of this fun community where we talk about Inscription and card games and rib each other about our Final Fantasy tastes endlessly, you can swing over to patreon.com/deeplistens and kick in literally any dollar amount to that particular Patreon. That will get you access to a super secret Discord, which we talk about every single episode, so it's not really secret, I guess. But I'm there, Braden's there, Gino's there, M's there, the whole gang is there. And we tend to be yucking it up there most of the time, at least one of us. You could also just yell at us directly, personally, to this show by sending us an electronic mail to inquiries@deep.lol. That is inquiries@deep.lol. We will read those. We'll take them into consideration. And, if you happen to be a subscriber to this Patreon of ours, you could send in a listener request, which is what we've kind of done for this episode. And I went with a specific weird prog rock album name tangent because the Japanese title for this game has extraordinary prog rock sounding energy to it. The English title does not. Oh yeah, here's your chance to tell me about your stream, etc. You advertise yourselves.
I played Mars Warlogs. I hate it.
I played a bunch of adventure games, and they were not great. I played the one that's Edgar Allan Poe themed, and it has puppets, and it stars William S. Burroughs reading Edgar Allan Poe poetry. It's interesting if you like watching slideshows where there's very little interactivity. Then I played Time Gate Night's Chase, and that game's actually awful.
That game says, what if we took Alone in the Dark, the Alone in the Dark engine, and then tried to make a more action-oriented, set-piece-filled video game?
Oh, and right, I played Loom, and that's half a video game. They didn't finish, and it's very obvious. And it's really weird. I think I didn't hate it. I didn't hate Loom.
Everyone's favorite
Ask me about
TurboGrafx CD game, Loom. The
Anyways,
game that the guy
you've
has
been
a
playing
button
some real
for in one of them games.
No. Braden's been playing good shit, which I'm not happy about. You've been enjoying
I
your
also
life.
have been playing Soul Reaver and Splinter Cell Chaos Theory, both of which I have enjoyed.
He's been playing games that are good, Jeff, without our permission.
Look forward this December.
Realms of the Haunting.
Realms of the Haunting is weird.
Played Halo Reach and said it was a bad game because you're a babby.
Halo Reach is not my favorite Halo game.
We have gotten to Secret of the Stars. Aka, Tecmo Secret of the Stars. AKA, I can't really tell. If you look at the Japanese, this is spelled Octarion. So I can't really, like, that's literally the kana. But the way it's used in the game, I think the English intent was trying to make it come out as Aquitalion or Aquitalion. It's a strange word. It's a nonsense. Spoilers, there's a lot of nonsense words in this game. It was developed by Tecmo, published by Tecmo, originally on the Super Famicom in November 4th, 1993 in Japan, and released in the United States sometime in 1995. Boy, what an adventure we've been on. What a saga.
Can we put the person who recommended this on blast for a little bit?
Joe, we love you. Thank you for listening to the podcast. This game is strange.
It's something.
I think I said this about Arabian Nights. Only makes sense when you are aware of how successful Dragon Quest was in Japan. That's the only soil in which a plant like this could have been successfully harvested. Because otherwise this makes no sense.
This is the darkest of days of mid-90s JRPGs for the Super Famicom.
The History Channel presents the Civil War to Call of Duty to...
Everything about this game, I think Braden put it best when I was playing it. Never before have I seen a game fire on all cylinders, shoot all of its possible shots, and miss the target with every single shot over and over again.
It reminds me of the, God help me, but the Plinkett review for The Last Jedi. Of like, this movie was absolutely trying things, and I can only commend it for having been so bold and ambitious and all the things it tried to do. It's just that it more or less failed at all of them. When I did a little research as to like the how and why on this game, I didn't find a lot of like concrete, internal Tecmo directives as to like the goals here. But once you start looking at the staff listing, a lot of this starts to make sense. We're going to probably spend a lot of time talking about the translation of this game. Relative to the length of this episode anyway. But
this came out in the United States of America.
Yeah, after Chrono Trigger, I believe.
Kind of amazing. Well, we got to talk about okay, where do you want to start, Jeff? Lead this. What direction do you want to start?
There's so many layers.
Yeah, like I feel like
I don't know where to start.
I have a bunch of notes here, and none of them are about the plot of this. So if either of you want to talk about plot stuff, let's put it this way: should we cover plot first or last?
Let's cover it first because it's so inconsequential.
Okay. Someone else take the reins because I got nothing.
So you control a main character by the name of Ray, whose father has died and he's been raised on a remote tropical island. He wakes up one day and discovers that the volcano is basically active, and people are like, yo, go investigate that, because I think this is kind of like, when did Star Tropics come out?
Oh, like 89, 90.
Okay, so...
in the US only, but...
Yeah. Kind of like that, where it's like, we're on a tropical island and we need to protect our wonderful place from some sort of geological thing. But I bet you something's up there in that place that's going earthquakey. Anyways, so we wake up, we discover that our father was some sort of special person. He was a special warrior by, I pronounced it as Aquitalion.
I think, for argument's sake, let's go with it.
Aquitalion.
I don't actually.
So Ray's father died. Ray's father eventually tells Ray that he is destined to be an Aquitalion to defeat Homcruce.
Yes.
I think it's like some sort of corruption of homunculus.
That is
or...
exactly what it
Yeah.
is.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
So it's like homunculus and curse.
Yeah. This word is spelled HOMNCRUSE, and it is used endlessly. Like it. If either of you are familiar with the Tales of Phantasia Game Boy Advance machine translation that was used for that game, they went through the script of that game, and every time Ragnarok is used, somehow that wound up being turned into kangaroo. And Ragnarok is a thing that is referred to quite often in Tales of Phantasia. So every single time you're playing that version of the game, when someone's trying to talk about Ragnarok, they say, like, kangaroo. It's
Kangaroo.
Yeah.
Sure.
There's some of that flavor here.
Can we talk about like the weird? No, that's going to get into translation thing. Well, let's not talk about what the volcano is called because.
Okay.
Anyways,
Yeah.
You are told while encountering some sort of ghost specter of your father who is since dead and has been, I believe, defeated by Hom Cruise, that you need to collect the other Aquatalian warriors, that they are all to kind of like join their forces, and with their forces combined are the ones that are given the task of defeating Hom Cruise. But then you meet the second group of warriors that are different. They're the Kustera, and they're just randos that join you and help you. And there are 11 of them, but there's like 5 Aquatalians. And the Aquatalians have different ranks. They start as penins, and then through different feats and trials, raise themselves in rank. And Hom Cruise has like a cadre of evildoers, and they're kind of like this weird mix of schlock, like pure schlock, like Badbad or Cat Boo, and then like actual evil villains that commit atrocities, and like the guy who lives in the volcano who commits an act of genocide. You know, JRPG.
It is a JRPG.
It sure it is.
But sometimes people get dog pilled.
Yeah. Boy, this story, it can't really decide if it wants to be comical or serious, or I don't know if it's oscillating between the two because of the translation. Like when I got to the village of the dog people, I really wonder what the original Japanese with that was. Like, was it a pill? Was it just a curse? Is this some sort of Japanese legend or myth that I did not read? Because that happens. But then, you know, there's the scenes where Ray has to hear of some sort of fable in which his father was killed and he needs to avenge all of his friends from Jeep Island. I don't know. Jeff, did this game make you feel anything other than confusion?
As I said above the start of this thing, I understand why this exists. It just got to be thinking, like, how? Who did this? Like, I started doing some true crime Secret of the Stars, I guess. And we're left to the detective work of the English language internet, I guess, here that I'm relying on. So caveat emptor there. But this, at the time, was Tecmo's first crack at this genre. And basically is their only crack at doing this very specific skew of this genre. Like, this is a Dragon Quest-ass game. It is a very, 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 very little distance between this and, like, a Dragon Quest 2 or something.
But to be clear, this is what if Dragon Quest was made by people who had watched someone else play Dragon Quest for 20 minutes in their own peripheral vision.
Yeah.
So I looked at the staff on this, and the planners, so like the people who were sat down and like wrote this game out and did like the event planning, all of that shit, their prior works are basically Tecmo Super Bowl, Tecmo World Cup Soccer, Tecmo World Wrestling, like exclusively Tecmo arcade sports stuff. Like there's, as far as I could tell, no one who worked on like, you know, the NES Rygar or anything even that's kind of approximates role-play mechanic kind of stuff. Like none of those are here. Some of the people who involved in this did go on to work on the Monster Rancher franchise, which is to say, I don't think Tecmo is like 100% out of like the RPG stuff after this, because they definitely were not. But yeah, these are folks who worked on exclusively sports stuff, and I can only imagine what happened was they showed up to work one day and a man in a suit said, I want you to make us a Dragon Quest. You're gonna make it. And they were like, bro, we don't. He was like, no.
Oh, yeah,
You're gonna make it. you got 6 weeks, or it's like some horrible deadline. They're like, shit, what the fuck? And this is what comes out. So the translation, according to Moby Games, the sole arbiter of video game truth, the translation job is basically credited to one person, Keisuke Kuboki, which is to say this was translated by a non-English speaker. So that should give you, like a good chunk of what happened. The only other credit that Keisuke-san has is for the English translation of Shining Wisdom.
I don't know what that is.
That is a Sega Saturn RPG that got localized. And I've not touched it, so I cannot speak to the quality of that translation.
Oh, of The Shining.
Yes,
Force.
one of the Shining games that is not Shining Force, but is inexplicably still Shine. He had assistance from 2 people, is what the Moby Game credit says. One of the people who gave assistance and has a credit on this game is a certain Hajime Tabata worked on this. Like that one. Like the Final Fantasy 15 guy.
Oh.
Like...
That's
the man responsible for huge chunks of Final Fantasy 15 post like 2000 something. This looks like it was his first thing he ever did in the video game industry.
He checked the box on
resume.
his job application. His resume.
Yeah, he shipped the game, which is something I can't say I have done. So more power to them.
I think that, let's just be honest, I think all of the problems that we're going to talk about, you can really point to the fact that this is very painfully a lot of people's first crack at making an RPG.
Yes, that's... And they were probably told very specifically it needs to be like this. Like the soundtrack. It's Chinatsu Okayasu was the man responsible for the soundtrack. You've not heard of him because he's not a video game music person. His only other credit is on a Captain Tsubasa game for the Super Nintendo that came out like 2 years after this. He, I think, was pretty much told, listen to the Dragon Quest soundtrack, then listen to the Dragon Quest 2 soundtrack, then listen to the Dragon Quest 3 soundtrack, then here's this book on arpeggios, and he banged that out. We've got him. Do you like arpeggios? Do you like celebrated Japanese wartime atrocity denier Sugiyama? Rest in piss.
May he rest in shit.
Yeah, because if you do, this may do something for you. It's a very, very, very rote kind of soundtrack throughout. But it was, someone who was, maybe they got into the video game industry thinking, I want to make music. But I don't think that was the case because they got out very quickly after this. So yeah. I think they were probably just flogged into making some music. And I think everyone here was flogged into making that's the circumstance. I don't have hard evidence of this, but all of the circumstantial evidence. And yeah, it leads to some really amazing decisions along the way. This is one of the more problematic lowercase p problematic translations I've ever seen. The first boss in this game is just called Cat Boo, which is Greered. And it's also weird that this boss is encountered by your first JRPG instinct, which is walk through all the houses in my hometown, all 3 of them, and just interact with everything. There's a cat sprite. The cat basically says, hi, I am a cat. New text box. Actually, I am a boss. And then a fight happens. It is one of the least graceful things I've ever seen. I feel like this was maybe in Japanese. There's a joke here. There's a gag, maybe some clever pun, like something. But when it comes out in English, it is more or less as I just described it.
How about the fact that when we're done dealing with Cat Boo, we have to go to Jeep Volcano?
Jeep Volcano.
And then when we're done dealing with Jeep Volcano, our next boss is Badbad.
Badbad, who has turned all of the citizens of the town of Bee Gees into dogs.
And then after we're done helping the town of Bee Gees, after we're done helping the town of Bee Gees, we have to beat the Ringo brothers.
Bingo and Leech.
Yep.
That's where I stopped playing the game.
This game makes Legend of Dragoon's translation look like a fucking
work of art.
A
labor of love,
an Alexander O. Smith joint.
Yep.
And it's got all of it is delivered in full caps. There's not a lowercase letter outside of the title screen.
A character says okay and it's O period lowercase k period.
Okay, so I guess that's a lowercase k that I've missed. So fair enough.
It's bad.
It's a pretty poor experience. And it would be helped along...
It's not just the translation that's a poor experience.
Yeah.
The entire game.
How did you put it, Braden? You're playing a ROM hack of a ROM hack?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that was
or,
Joe Brown's words originally.
Yeah, Joe Brown, who recommended this to us, said something like it's a bootleg of a bootleg.
Yeah.
And that is an abundantly apt description, because this entire game feels like a weird, cheap knockoff of a better video game. It's like the Chinese NES hack version of Final Fantasy VII.
Thought you were gonna say the Chinese Star Wars game where Darth Vader turns into a scorpion. But okay,
that's
cool.
A Namco
No,
game. Fuck you.
that is a real video game. That's not Chinese. That is a real video game that came out in Japan.
Namco Star Wars. Keep its name out of your mouth. Namco made that.
It has extremely strong. I found this at a flea market. This is a video game that I feel like at any point could turn into a creepypasta.
This has let's buy an RPG. We have RPG at home, and then this is the RPG at home energy. Like it right down to the American box art, which has this very specific,
this goober,
shitty, like straight to DVD animated film quality to the art. Straight to DVD, straight to VHS, actually.
Care Bears looking motherfuckers on the front cover.
Yeah, I don't look at that and go, I'm stirred, I am called to adventure. It goes, where are these kids' parents? Like,
I can't believe my grandma got this for me for Christmas instead of Final Fantasy 3.
Yeah, like
parentheses 6.
It looks like a bunch of Precious Moments dolls, basically. It's strange. Not to diss on Precious Moments. Your grandma's nice, but like it's just. Sorry, Joe. I'm trying to find something to say here.
It's a real experience, a cavalcade of dark pain.
And it's like
it's a real mindfuck.
It's not even like it's particularly eventful. Like the stakes feel kind of, like the stated as you described at the top, world at fate, dead father, fate, uniting a bunch of like warriors across the world. Like, okay. But when you're actually doing it, the stakes feel very mundane and small and tedious. It is a very tedious game on top of its other faults, is the other thing. The experience yields are quite low compared to the thresholds that are needed to level up at any point. And
well, did you notice that the game gives you more gold than experience points?
Yeah, which is maybe 100% not the way I would like that. Because then at a certain point you run out of things to buy, and it's just a matter of like that first island that you're on. I was dicking around and found some goblin mob or something up on the north side of a volcano. There were 2 of them, and it gave me like 15 experience for fighting both of them, and I was like, oh shit, okay, this is where I need to be grinding. Continued to hang out there for like, I don't know, a normal grind sesh, and did not come upon that mob again. It was just like slime
and
after
here's
slime
where
after slime.
Jeff, you're burying the lead here.
Oh
yeah.
What's
Jeff?
How does this game play? What kind of perspective do you have?
This game, its main distinguishing point, I think the thing that, this is something that some other RPGs have done, obviously, but I feel like the one thing this game is trying to do differently is that you have 2 separate parties you gotta grind up.
Yep.
Yeah.
And never the twain shall meet.
Yeah,
You
and
can
that's a
exchange
problem
items.
Because I would buy items for one group of party members thinking I can just transfer this over to the other party members. The other party. I opened this treasure chest and it has this item that's more useful in party B than party A. Nope. And you spend a lot of this game with just one character per party, and that sure fucking sucks.
Yeah.
Especially when the game starts plopping like trash mobs of 3 to 4 enemies.
The thing, as you've said, the telephone sort of copy of a copy comments feel very apt, because it feels like the parts of Dragon Quest II specifically, where they're like, wow, there can be multiple monsters, but eventually you wind up with a second party member, like maybe the worst character in the entire Dragon Quest series, but a second party member nonetheless. And, your damage output increases by 100% in theory. But yeah, this one, you are kind of stuck as a character and then eventually 2, and the mobs just kind of keep growing, and then you swap over to this other party. And the 2-party thing is so baffling, and I poked around. To be very clear, I didn't finish this game either. I got as far as Badbad, and nope, I'm good. Poking around on forums on the internet, I can't tell specifically if you need to be using both of these parties or not. I don't know if this game was not forcing you to do so. I don't know why you would ever bother, because they move completely independently is the other thing. And they can, in fact, block each other. It's really dumb. Like, the other party is represented as a tent somewhere in the world.
Oh, and sometimes if you plop them inside buildings, you can actually block your path for the other party.
That's what
I
I'm
ended up
saying.
doing that.
It's so dumb. Like, why would you make that decision? Why can you not just pass through?
All right, so if we're going to talk about like all of the weird mistakes, I think we should talk about all of the mistakes this game made and then try to like muse over what this game tried to borrow from, because like there's that city building element that's oddly like ActRaiser. There's like Secrets of Mana in here. Where's
the mana?
Dragon Quest because of the perspective stuff. But okay, the first big mistake that the game makes is that it does that front character in the front, enemy is towards, what's that perspective, this style of perspective work for RPG? Behind the back.
I mean, the combat is kind of first person, and then it animates your characters behind the back.
It's basically the combat in this
like
this generation's version of
it is Dragon Quest.
Yeah. There's a little Phantasy Star, maybe, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess.
I think Phantasy Star in terms of the perspective work, but it plays like the Dragon's Quest panel system, especially when you get more characters. The problem with that, you spend way too much time with just one character per party, and also when you get new characters, they are almost always super low level.
Yes.
Tina, for example, joins the Aquatalians at level 1, and that sure fucking sucks because you're in like a level 8 to 7 environment, and she keeps getting her ass kicked.
You gotta grind her up.
The party swapping mechanic, which is one of the main selling points of this thing, is just tedious and it's annoying, and it really slows the game to a crawl because that Kustera group, they really don't have a lot to do because most of the dungeons that you're going to spend most of your time with, like 90 to 70% of them need to be completed by the Aquatalians. So it's not even like the Kustera are doing something essential unless you do what I ended up doing and you found the optional dungeons. They're just like, they open these treasure chests that the other characters couldn't open. Also, speaking of the treasure chests, so many of them are just completely inessential. And the random encounter rate is so high enough to where I wanted to fucking die. It's like I took these 18 extra steps and dealt with like 4 or 5 extra random encounters, and I got a fucking antidote.
I highly recommend, first off, no one should play this game, but if you do, I highly recommend turning off all the animations and then running the emulator at double speed. And that made it mostly manageable.
Some of the dungeons are just horribly designed. There's that first dungeon in the volcano where it goes painfully long. That first dungeon sucks a lot of shit.
There is no strategy to the combat whatsoever. It is literally
and it's
just
even worse with the Kustera party because it's all DPS options. There are very few people who can cast reliable magic.
Also, you don't get your MP back unless you rest at the inn.
Yes.
Or you use the magical switch in your hometown.
Yep.
I don't know why, using the beds, even though they are plentiful, doesn't restore your MP. And also the MP restoring items are so rare.
You're basically never going to use magic except to heal.
I had a real Final Fantasy II flashback here, Jeff, where when I was doing that first dungeon and I fucked around enough to where it's like, God damn it, I'm going to have to pop out of this dungeon and have to redo this shit all over again because I don't have enough healing items. My characters are low enough health. I've used up all of my MP. I'm literally going to have to punch back and take that long-ass walk to Bee Gees and rest and buy shit.
Yeah, and there are teleport items you can have on you, which alleviate, I guess, a little bit of that. It's like the magical moment in Dragon Quest when you get your warp spell or whatever. It's like, oh, thank God, I don't have to do this terrible walk over and over again for the rest of my life. But like you said, that Death March kind of feeling of I'm going to die alone in this cave or have to pound my way out of here. It's definitely there. It feels like an old game as a result.
What's another major flaw? The magic system is really unforgiving. Like all of your spells are 2 to 3 points, and it starts you off with 12 to 15 points of magic points. So you really can only reliably cast 3 to 5 spells per character.
Once you get Tina, she has way more MP, but it's just offensive magic does not feel noticeably
That's the other
stronger.
Thing. Like that fire one, that ice one, those spells suck shit.
Shades of black mages in certain versions of Final Fantasy 1.
Yeah.
It has an overworld, a traditional overworld, but it makes the Final Fantasy 1 error of, oh, you've gone off to this corner because you didn't know where to go. Now you're fighting level 20 characters. Eat shit.
That's just old video game design.
Yeah.
I think the thing I would like to emphasize here is that this game came out in 93.
It looks like shit. Can we talk about this?
Also, this game looks like butt. It looks like a early TurboGrafx 16 game.
The fact that this game came out after Final Fantasy II in the US, but Final Fantasy IV everywhere else, blows my goddamn mind. Because it looks like ass. You see those chunky pixels of the characters in towns, and they look like one step above an NES or a TurboGrafx game. They look awful. The game sounds like trash. The music is awful.
It's just very rote music. Like I don't hate it, but it's rote as shit. Unremarkable. Like
it is royalty-free JRPG music.
Yeah, I want to look here and see Tecmo.
Like with that first house that you're in, I saw that octagonal-looking lake, and it's like, this looks like something that was made in JRPG Maker. Did they use JRPG Maker to make this game? Like the tiles.
When my brother-in-law watched me play this, he said, "Is this a Game Boy game?"
And then there's just the level design. Oh my god. That Badbad dungeon where you're in the weird robot lab part where it's like it's a bunch of corridors that are like 5 pixels long, and it just is one set of stairs to the next set of stairs.
The 2 dungeons I played in this game were both bad enough such that if we did do a separate like worst dungeon list, both of them probably get nominated by me. But Badbad's was probably a little worse because it felt twice as long. I watched a Let's Play at some point this morning, just like trying to refresh myself because this was like a commute game, and I've been getting tired on my commutes recently because like the sun's down at 4 here, and
yeah, fuck this daylight savings time shit.
Yeah, I mean, hey, fuck the sun too.
I don't know, man.
No, the sun's bad. We don't like it.
No, I was going to say, like, those 2 dungeons that you were talking about, and then it's like the Utic battleship or the cathedral ship in Xenosaga. We got some real turds in our worst dungeon category for our GOTY episode of Deep Listen, or Off the Deep End.
If that was going to be a category, which maybe it should be.
We should definitely make that a category.
Yeah, because it can really break a game. That Badbad dungeon, I watched someone play through that, and they got from the front gate up to Badbad in about 15 minutes. Now, that's as far as I got in this game. And if that took me 15 minutes, I guess in some sense I would believe you. But on the other hand, it feels like just an eternity because it is a brown. It is like the trope of the last, like, or I guess 2 generations ago, like Unreal Engine 3 kind of brown and gray world. It's just an endless cavalcade of like the same feeling dreck. Like the cave environments are very bland. It's weird playing this around the same time you're playing Final Fantasy VI, because it's like Final Fantasy VI has its share of like fucking caves you're going through as well. And they may not be stupendous, but they're at least kind of visually distinct and have some like interesting layouts to them, sort of wrap around. This felt a lot more like Final Fantasy II or Final Fantasy I, or frankly Dragon Quest I.
The one with Ringo, where it's like the weird catwalk with the odd parallaxing and texture work that looks like ass. It looks like ass. That's what I mean when I say I think this game looks awful.
This is a mid-era SNES game.
And this is where I think that, when did Secrets of Evermore come out? Because I think that
96.
Secret of Evermore was 95.
Yeah, 95.
Okay.
But one of you is right. I have the list in front of me right now.
But it's... I know you guys think that someone played Dragon Quest, but there's so many other games that I feel like they tried to pull from. Like I said, there's that weird, like, building a little town, which it reminded me of ActRaiser, except worse. There are parts of this that feel like Secrets of Mana. Like, there are levels that feel like they are trying to steal from Secrets of Mana.
Like, can you give an example? The town thing just registered in my head.
I mean, some of the forest work, the party line, and kind of the pseudo combat system here felt like it. There's some like exploration bits. Like I don't know how it sounds like I played a little bit more than you, Jeff,
Yes, you
but
did.
there are like there are optional shrines
Oh,
that you can go to, and they unlock different stuff. And also, unlike Braden and Jeff, I took the time to level up both parties.
yeah, you're
Yeah, because you hate
that's
yourself.
bold choice. Seems to be the way to get the, I guess, final boss done in a neat way. Okay, I'm gonna make a bold statement. Everyone hold on to your chair. Breath of the Wild cribbed from this game. Now hear me out. I watched someone play the final boss of this game, which I'm never going to do in my life in person. And it's a gimmick fight. It's got 2 phases. You can just fight it like a normal human being, and there are people on GameFAQs who attest to having done that. Or you can use an item, which I have come to understand you apparently only get using the Custera people, going to different like optional shrines. You use this thing, and then you cast like a fusion spell between multiple characters, and that pretty much winnows away like most of the health of the first form of this boss. And then you get to the actual final boss, who's not exactly hard. In the grand like Gradius tradition of the last boss is kind of a joke, which is kind of like Breath of the Wild, in the sense that, you go to 4 optional dungeon things because they are optional and turn on a robot. And then the point of that is to make the final boss easier, or I guess the penultimate boss. So there, I did it. Shigeru Miyamoto, he played Secret of the Stars in the mid-90s and was like, this is good. Like, this is really good. We should put this in Zelda. It's my opinion. Prove me wrong.
Sure.
Game, set, match. QED.
Different shrines are the only places where I felt like I was able to reliably level up the Custera party members because, like I said, 90% of the main story dungeons only allow the Aquitalian party members to navigate the higher levels of them. Like the first 2 dungeons that we went to, you literally can only take the Custera party to like the first floor to open up a couple of chests.
So do we want to try to speculate or figure out like the why of what this game does? Because I feel like...
Yeah, Jeff, why don't you weave a tale about why this game is?
We've explained the what, and this game is like every single aspect of it is a poorly executed JRPG with questionable ideas.
And you're asking me why this exists?
And just that was the question I kept asking myself was, why is this way? Why do you have 2 parties and one of them is basically optional?
I have no answer to this question. I think it's the fundamental... If everything else in this game was at least tolerable, this might have just put me off in and of itself. Because, like, in the same way that, like, department of redundancy, department kind of stuff bothers, I think, everyone on the planet. The idea of, hey, congrats, you've played this JRPG, which is a mode of game based on the idea that, even if you're not particularly good at games, you can eventually just kind of make the math work in your favor by just playing it more. That is the core design principle around Dragon Quest 1, based on interviews. It's like, I want to give everyone a chance to finish this game, and they don't need to be good at it to do that. So a genre kind of built on grinding, and what this game says is, cool, now do it again. like repeat all of your work. That sucks.
Do it twice.
Yeah, like that like no one wants that. It's the reason that quick saving is so popular. It's the reason that people hate it's the reason Psychonauts 2 people are praising it, because when you hit I want to close this game, it says, are you sure your last save was 4 seconds ago? And people are like, oh good, I don't want to have to relive 4 seconds of my life, right? Like no one wants to replay shit. Like no one, not a fucking soul.
Then why does this game have you not able to save until an hour into it when you meet Uncle Save?
Yep.
You can meet Uncle Save in the starting town.
By the way, props to Uncle
really?
Save.
Best character in the game.
It's a great name. It's maybe the only funny thing so far. I guess a random cat turning into a boss. Kind of funny.
And then continuing to fuck around with you.
Bad.
Yeah.
He's like a weird bat demon imp guy.
Like,
called Bad.
this is a talking point. I don't know how much I necessarily subscribe to this talking point, but there's something to be said for the value proposition, I guess. This was, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, an $80 game when it came out in both territories, plus or minus $10 either direction, you know? That's, anyway, and that was in 1993 money. Can you even imagine? So you want to get your money's worth. And if you were to say, hey, this game has, you know, like the fucking Witcher 3 or whatever, over 100 hours of gameplay. Note the median playtime on this, on how long to beat, is like 27 hours or something. So this is not a 100-hour game. Dear God, don't do that. But like, if you were to say, hey, like this game's got like 25, 30 hours of gameplay, or whatever the fucking back of your box slogan is, someone probably looks at that and says, wow, what a deal. I'm going to have so much game to play here, as opposed to, you know, the other hot Tecmo release in North America that year, which was Ninja Gaiden Trilogy, which is really bad,
a good
by the
video
way.
game. Is the SNES release of Ninja Gaiden Trilogy bad?
It's terrible. For people who don't know, it is a very jank port of the first 3 Ninja Gaiden games for the NES, which sounds like a good idea, but the music is absolutely bottled. Like, it feels like they're kind of trying to emulate a Famicom on a Super Famicom, and it just does not work at all, which is crazy because when they initially designed the Super Nintendo stroke Famicom, one of the things they had in mind was a very nascent backwards compatibility that ultimately was never really executed upon. But there's some common lineage of hardware at the root of it. I think it's like a 6502 derivative CPU somewhere in there. So in a beautiful world, it would just be a cartridge that just plays those first 3 games, but it's ass. And I think that Ninja Gaiden Trilogy is actually a bonus unlockable in Ninja Gaiden Black, whereas I think the original release of Ninja Gaiden on the Xbox...
I think it's the arcade game.
I think it is the arcade game. One of them has... I want to say...
The original Xbox release of Ninja Gaiden has the original 3 NES game. But then for Black, if you get all the golden scarabs, you get the arcade game, which is not the version of that game you want to play.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think that first one, the Ninja Gaiden, those 3 games, it might be the SNES version of those. I should look this up.
I was not a huge Tecmo person, so keep talking.
Yeah, I mean...
I will say the weird thing that this made me realize is I was always more of a fan of Koei, especially during this period of time, rather than Tecmo. Look, man, Koei made some interesting RPGs. They made those fucking... They made Brandish. They made those fucking...
Genghis
what is
Khan
it?
2.
Nobunaga's Ambition.
Yeah. Those are good games.
They made the fucking... What was that pirate RPG that I really liked as a kid?
You're talking about
Uncharted Waters? That was a fucking baller-ass game, dude!
Yeah. Got a Famicom release in Japan. It's a huge cartridge. It's almost an entire meg.
It's huge! That Uncharted Waters is cool.
Yeah. Spoilers, I've thought about playing Uncharted Waters, the sequel, for this show.
Uncharted Waters, Braden, is if Sid Meier's Pirates was a JRPG.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it has, like...
Okay, and what if...
all of the, like, economic sort of sim elements of a Koei game, but the gameplay mechanics of a JRPG in a lot of ways on the scale of the planet. So... yeah,
the scale of that game is insane.
Like, have you ever wanted to sail from Portugal to Japan in, like, more or less real time? You can do that. People will probably be pissed, though. You should probably pull over in, like, the Americas a couple times. Otherwise, you will just starve and die. Yeah, Uncharted Waters is cool. Which is, it's not Alcatallion, it's not Secret of the Stars, and it's not even a Tecmo game, but it is cool. I guess they're all one big happy family now.
Yeah, now you can get your boobs in your Disgaea.
Yeah.
Wait, that was always the case.
No.
Tecmo was not super...
Disgaea is
Koei.
Nipponichi.
Oh, yeah, wait. Yeah, I guess you're right.
NIS joint. Tecmo was not a super prolific Super Nintendo company. It looks like they had 13 games...
Weren't they still also predominantly an arcade game developer? So
I don't know where all their money was coming from at this point. Like their SNES list is, let's see, Super Baseball, Super Bowl, like 3 Tecmo Super Bowl games.
They made look. Tecmo made a ton of money on Tecmo Bowl.
Yeah, just selling.
The Tecmo football games made them a shit ton of money.
Yeah, they hold up too. Like they're fun, pick up and play football games. If you like the sport of American football, check them out.
I will just say, the part of this game that kind of annoyed me was the fact that how it doesn't guide you enough, right? Like,
in theory, that's like appealing to me, but in practice, it's miserable.
But then also, it's like, hey, there's a lady in this town. I've got my cats fighting. Can you solve that? Which house is the one with the cats that I need to solve the problem? Wait, what? Oh, okay.
It is deep drudgery.
Yeah.
And once again,
even like
highly recommend playing at double speed.
The fucking Badbad. They're like, oh yeah, you should check out the. We think this guy is in a house in the south of town.
We talk about the caves on the first island, Jeff.
I mean, that's how the caves are. I have to talk about this town though. God damn it. Because you get a direction from someone in that town in BG's, the town called BG's, again, to reiterate, says, oh yeah, we think the Badbad gang is in a cave in a house in town, in the south end of town. So you go into every house in the south end of BG's, and there is one of them that has like a dog blocking the way, and there's a little like trap door going down behind this dog. And I was like, aha, I found it. Okay, let's get in there. And I try to poke around and try to talk to the dogs and try to different items, and nothing's really doing anything. And I'm like, okay, clearly something is wrong here. Go to the World Wide Web, because I was like, Uncle, I give up. I don't want to waste time here. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's actually a cave south of town. It's not a house. It's a cave south of town. A ways south of town. Like, okay, so there's parts of this game where the translation is to the point where it actually just misdirects you a little bit, which I don't know. That sure cheesed me off, guys. Sure ground my gears. Sure buttered my biscuit. Didn't care for that at all. But yeah, the caves. There's like a little hill sprite.
There's like a little slit.
A little slit. A little...
Oh, yeah, a little crack.
A crack. A crevasse. Which
a crease.
A crease, if you will. But it's barely noticeable. We're talking like 3 or 4 slightly darker
pixel
pixels.
Hunting.
And you need to make a very specific contact with that part of this mountain sprite to get into the cave. So it just leads to you kind of hunt and pecking your way around every little mountain hill sprite that you see. I wonder if there's a cave here. Oh, I found it. It's no good.
Yeah. And after you beat Badbad, this is where I played a little bit more. Yeah. You go back to your little town, and Uncle Save's like, congratulations, you beat the first person that's connected to Tom Cruise. What you should do now is build your town here. Find an architect, and we also need farmers. That's all I'm going to say. God rest your soul. Bye. It's like, what? Then you just have to navigate the entire world looking for an architect and some farmers. The architect's easy to find. You just got to go left from Winds, but finding the farmers, even though this is a bunch of podunk towns, is the hardest part. You have to like go to a town and then take the special exit from one town to the next. It just is awful. And then again, I'm someone who valued keeping both parties with me at all times, so I have to do the trek twice. And there's a racist caricature, I think. I'm going to post this image in the chat, and basically, you've got to fight a farmer, and he's dressed like Uncle Remus from, Uncle Tom's Cabin, or it's bad. It's a bad. I'm here to ask. Who can ask me questions? How are you doing?
Oh,
okay. That's just a player. That's a world field sprite.
And then you find out that this guy is actually evil, and then he does this. He becomes this.
Oh.
Yeah, okay. That's worse.
That's questionable. Yeah.
But then what you do is you beat the evil spirit out of him, and then he becomes Golan Jr., and then he looks like this for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I could see this bothering.
He's a farmer.
Yeah, this is not great. When you have all of the context, it adds up to a not great.
Anyways, what I'm saying is the ActRaiser part of this game is not great. And then once you do the ActRaiser part of this game, you do the Secret of Mana part, which is you enter a forest that's actually a maze with random encounters. And that was maybe the worst thing. I'm glad I did not stream it because it was just me going through this hedge maze, fighting these dragons to get to the snow level. And it was just the goddamn worst. I hated every part of this.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say none of us really enjoyed this game.
No.
I
did you
would
enjoy
be
this
willing
game?
to make the argument that this is one of the worst games we have played. And, being the sicko that I am, I might say it is the worst game that we've played.
What if I were to tell you, gentlemen, that in its time, in its day, the hit gaming magazine GamePro compared the plot of this game to X-Files?
What?
What?
Yeah, it's true.
Okay, can we let's just spend the next 20 minutes dunking on old school gaming magazines and how amateurish and dumb they were?
What if I were to tell you that Electronic Gaming Monthly gave this game, on average, a 7 out of 10?
Is it because they had the 3 people who played JRPGs in the office play it?
In all likelihood,
and they're like, well, this is the one for this year.
A Chrono Cross situation. Famitsu wound up giving this a 19 over 40, which is actually low for them.
For Famitsu numbers, that's the most damning thing I've ever heard.
That's in like the bottom
third. The paycheck didn't show up.
That seems more appropriate than praising this game. I don't know if there's a whole hell of a lot more to really add here. I'm not continuing to play this.
If you were a JRPG nerd in 95, there were places you could go.
Even the Super Nintendo
4.
had stuff for you to play.
Final Fantasy 6.
And 4,
Chrono
which was technically
Trigger.
2. Chrono Trigger.
Suikoden.
This came out in July 1995 in the United States.
Of Mana.
You're like months away from having the PlayStation, which gets you a whole pile of other JRPGs. I guess not really at launch, but eventually. And yeah, even discounting that.
You had the best Mario RPG game ever made on this platform. You had the Earthbound.
Yeah, there you go.
The Earthbound.
You had Illusion of Gaia.
An absolute spoil of riches. The best you were ever going to have it.
And the game that inspired this, probably you had like 2 Dragon Quest games that were good. Like you had at least Dragon Quest V.
If you were in Japan, you had it. If you're in America, you have Dragon Quest 1 through 4 when no one wanted them. So, like, yeah, you could do better on your NES. You could do better on your Sega Genesis. Like, even when you get outside of the realm of, like, your Phantasy Stars, there's, like, middle-of-the-shelf shit that was probably
like
better.
Breath of Fire.
Yeah. So, I having, I think, sufficiently had this one up on the pillory, I am in favor of putting it on our big list and then moving on, because I don't really want to talk about it anymore. It just makes me feel bad.
So I think, Jeff, Braden and I have talked about this. I believe with this list, we need to establish, Braden, we've talked about this.
The Kuso line.
Kuso line.
The Kuso line. Okay.
We've established, like, the line of mediocrity, but where is the Kuso line?
Well, what is our line of mediocrity? Because I wasn't made aware of this.
Okay.
I think anything below Ultima 4 at this point. Read the list.
Below...
For friends at home, from bottom to top, we'll do that. Draken, Revengers of Vengeance, Lord of the Rings The Third Age, Game Boy Advance, Arabian Nights, Lord of the Rings The Third Age, consoles, Ys 3, all versions. So, if we were talking about the Famicom version of Ys 3, it goes tier below, it's really bad. Soma Bringer, Bahamut Lagoon, Fire Emblem 1, I'm not going to use the caption, Ultima 4, Grandia 2, Xenosaga Episode 1, Derville Zermacht, ZP's favorite game. And the top of our list, we have Suikoden, the original. Suikoden Prime. So, for me, personally, because I'm broken, Ys 3 is just mediocre.
Okay.
Y'all can push back.
But what's below Ys 3
Lord
again?
of the Rings, The Third Age.
Okay, I think I would put the line above Lord of the Rings in terms of mediocrity. Or actually, I would put the line below. I would include Lord of the Rings is a mediocre game.
It is mediocre.
So I think that the line of mediocrity goes below Lord of the Rings. Anything above this line is mediocre or better.
I'm putting tildes and I'm writing mediocrity.
Okay, now the Kuso line.
Okay, I think Kuso we're getting into...
We actually need to put this game on the list and then make the Kuso line.
Yep.
Okay, I think this is...
Below the line of mediocrity.
I mean, absolutely. I think this is at least as bad as Revengers of Vengeance. It can go either side of it. I don't really care.
I would put this below Revengers of Vengeance.
I would put this below Revengers of Vengeance only because Revengers of Vengeance, though it is barely functioning...
It is novel.
It is novel and it was made by one person.
Yeah. Has a shooter in it.
Yeah, it has ideas
bad,
that some of its ideas actually work.
It has extremely strong Sega CD aesthetic.
I think the soundtrack is kind of fun. Okay, is it worse than Draken?
Okay, hear me out.
Yes.
Draken is a game designed with intent. Draken is a game that was made the way it was on purpose. It is a spiteful, hateful game, but it is intentionally a spiteful, hateful game. And having watched M play it, apparently it is at the very least playable to some extent if you put in the time and are looking at a guide. This game is a misfire on every level. It is a busted simulacrum of a genre that was done better by games that came out almost 10 years beforehand. Whereas Draken is pushing the envelope. It is a game that is trying things in 1989. It has strong visual design. It's got that character creation screen. I think this is the worst game we've played.
I would just say that I think that there's a sense of progression with Secret of the Stars that was absent in Draken.
Well, yeah, if you keep getting eaten by that shark, how can you progress?
I would also argue that it wasn't as relentlessly malicious. Remember when you would die and you would respawn in the nearest town?
The endless malice is what makes Draken amazing.
Yeah,
it is
but
a game that just hates you.
Brayden, we're playing video games.
This game is benign in its terribleness.
At the risk of alienating our boss, Gino, is Draken a Souls game?
I think so. I think you could make an argument that it's got an element of Souls.
I would hear that argument.
I'm going to hell when I die, so
I wouldn't argue that it's a Metroidvania.
No.
No.
I think there's a certain for two things, I guess. Even if this game the translation is bad, there's no way around it. Even if it was a great translation, or if I was a native Japanese speaker and could just read and enjoy the original mind-blowing Faulkner-esque story of Ocutalion in Japanese, I'd still have to play it, and the playing this game also sucks shit. So I don't think I would experience the story anyway. Also, I'm not convinced that the story is good, even as it was originally intended.
Well, Draken's story is just lore that you have to read in a book that's not even well embedded in the game.
Yeah, but the stars come down to murder you. What's the secret of the stars and Secret of the Stars?
But
nothing.
Secret of the Stars.
Come down
no,
to
you go to the Star Temple and you find out that each of the stars, each of the characters is an element, and created the cosmos, created the world.
I think you could learn to have fun with Draken easier than you could learn to have fun with this.
This game made me laugh more than... no, that's not true. Draken makes me laugh.
Draken is the funniest video game.
I raised over $700 thanks to Draken.
You and Gino played, Psychonauts 2 and Draken back to back, and both those games are pretty funny, but Draken's funnier.
I think we've gotten more mileage out of Draken.
When we're on the GOTY, let's do this blood pack where we all vote for Draken for funniest game.
I'm not going to acknowledge that we had this conversation. I didn't hear that.
Gino and I don't listen to this.
Anyways.
And Pete don't listen to this.
If you want to vote for this is worse than Draken, I am not going to put up that much of a stink. I'm just saying that Draken is a wall you bang your head on and then you think back to. It's like, man, remember that piece of shit that I banged my head on for 5 hours?
It's an ambitious piece of shit you bang your head against.
To distill both of your arguments down, ZP, try this one on. I will remember Draken. I will not remember this game.
That's not true. You're gonna bring up Secret of the Stars as, remember that weird Tecmo game that basically was just a complete failure?
I mean, it's not even weird. That's just it. It's not that weird. It's just rote. It's mediocre. It's
worse than mediocre.
Yeah, it's overly simplistic. It has no style. It has no grace. This Kong has a funny face.
Are you saying there's no drip? It has no
There's
drip?
a certain lack of drip to this game, which I feel like Draken has, It's all it
Okay,
is,
dude,
it's all
I'm
Draken
willing. I'm
has.
willing to. I'm not gonna litigate this. If we are 2-1, I will join and say that this game is indeed worse than Draken.
This game is worse than Draken, which isn't to say
This is the worst game we have played for this podcast.
to the
No.
individual who nominated it. It's not to say you're bad or wrong for having shown us the way. I appreciate having looked at this thing. I feel like I've learned something.
It's the holidays, and sometimes we bring gifts. Braden apparently has come to us to bring us a gift because this video game talk was weird. Braden, what did you bring?
I have brought the gift of a giant book.
Ah.
I bought the CRPG book, which is literally just called the CRPG book. I believe there is a counterpart book called the JRPG book that is put out by Bitmap Books. It is a very nice, big hardcover thing. But I want to bring it up mostly because it is a very interesting survey ground for some things we might want to cover in the future. So I believe a lot of this was like crowdsourced, like the individual articles on each game were written by mostly volunteers. And they got a couple guests to write, including video game developers who are now canceled.
And rightfully so. Let's not.
Yes. Let's be clear. The one thing I might hesitate to say about this book is that it definitely seems like a lot of these were compiled throughout the last decade, just in the 2010s. A lot they got all these articles together and stuff. And there's definitely some involvement from a RPG centric video game forum that will remain unnamed. That is now a haven for Nazis.
Ah.
Yes, that place. But as a celebration of the genre and an exploration of like weird shit that I've never heard of, it's a lot. It's great. There's a piece at the beginning that's kind of like, how do I get into these games? What games are good starting point? And gives what I feel are pretty decent recommendations. So for 1980s, it's Dungeon Master. Let me look this up.
I also bought a book.
Yes.
Did I tell you about the book that I bought?
Yes.
I bought the Dungeons and Dragon Cookbook.
Are you attempting to upstage me right now?
All of the recipes in this book are categorized into human, elven, dwarven, or halfling.
There's an article in this talking about Plato computer RPGs.
Oh man, can you read something from that?
Hold it. Yeah, let me pull this up. It talks about like the introduction of wargaming in like the Holy Roman Empire. Let's see. D&D 1975. Initially, the game only had one dungeon floor, but the creators kept expanding it. Inspired by pinball machines, they decided to add a high score. Since players then began to race to collect gold and exit the dungeon, they decided to add an end goal, retrieve the orb, which was guarded by the dragon, the first boss fight in a video game. There's a 4-page long article, full color, and illustrations about the history of Plato computer system RPGs.
In my book, there's a section called Yawning Portal Buttermilk Biscuits.
I bet those are pretty good. You know, Durnan, he's probably a pretty good cook because, he retrieved the secret of immortality from the bottom of Undermountain. That's a little Forgotten Realms lore for you. Anyway, I just want to bring this book up because
it sounds like it's
some
worth
things.
How much is it?
This was like $80.
It sounds like it is worth it just because it's like this encyclopedia of knowledge.
It is a cool coffee table thing. And the individual quality of the articles written is all over the place, let's say. Some of them are just like, I remember when I bought this game back in 1985. I didn't know what I was doing, but I loved it. And it's like, okay, very cool.
It sounds like, oddly enough, the person who's been canceled, Chris Avalon.
Chris Avalon.
It sounds like his sections are well known for being the worst sections of the book.
His article on Wasteland 1 is like surprisingly bad.
I remember back in my day, I played the game and I always died. And it wasn't until I was an adult when I realized that I needed to level up.
Eye of the Beholder is a video game where you get murdered.
Hey, Jeff,
Yes.
the book of A Guide to Japanese Role-Playing Games has an entire section dedicated to Tower of Druaga.
There are some articles about like
Don't
Japanese
deny your
PC games, like the Ys. The ports of Ys are there.
Yeah. Bokoska Wars.
I'm not joking when I say I just read the article about a little game called Knights of Zentar, which is known in Japan as Dragon Knight 3, which are a series of Japanese PC 98 games. And you know what kind of RPGs run the PC 98?
Wizardry clones.
Naked
And
ones.
naked pornographic.
Naked wizardry.
Like Body Conquest. Famicom Disk System.
Yeah.
Hey, sounds like a fine book. I finally finished
This is a fine book.
reading two things. The HD 101 title of 101 Japanese Obscurities, I think is what it's called. I should look up the name of this book. Obscurities. I kickstarted this book. I crowdfunded it through HD 101. Got a copy a while ago. Finally finished reading it. It's neat. It's got 2-page spreads on 101 utterly unlocalized Japanese game. There's like a handful of these have been fan translated. It's neat. I would get a PDF copy of it, and incidentally, you can get a PDF copy of it. It's up on itch.io. So if you like books but hate things that take up physical space, and want to read, more or less print copies of articles you can read on a really good website, I would recommend all of the HD 101 titles. They're all just amazing. You should check them out. Full disclosure, I work for the website.
Uh-huh. Hey, Braden, in my book, there's a recipe called Archon the Cruel's flame-roasted halfling chili, and it describes how to butcher a halfling.
Oh, that's fun. Not as good as Archon the Black.
We find a way to sneak in Warhammer talk no matter
This
what.
will be of interest to ZP and perhaps Gino. I've also finished another book I'm looking at across the room right now. On the Way to a Smile, Final Fantasy VII, the light novel.
Hell yeah!
Collection of in-universe fiction.
That game is great until it needs to bring Kadaj into the fold. The entire second, third, the last third of that book completely falls apart, but actually knowing what it's like and learning about the mystery of the girl needing to find what happened to her friends. People just living in Midgar is the best part of that book. It's oddly well written, and then it realizes that it needs to tie into Advent Children, and that's when the book falls apart.
Yeah, I didn't think the writing in it was incredible, but it's fine. It's very, very high tier fan fiction. What kind of struck me is it was released after Advent Children and is sort of backfilling how they got there as opposed to the other way around.
You also see a bunch of characters that didn't make their official in-game appearances until 7 Remake.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
Kari.
So that's the other one, I think, which I also own, which is called The Kids Are All Right, a Turk side story of Final Fantasy VII, which I'm looking at right next to my copy of On the Way to a Smile. Yeah, low-key.
You learn more about the genophage.
We should just forcibly put these books on the tier list, because Gino's not going to read them.
Yeah, Gino, if you're listening,
2 on 3.
We're going to force you to read.
Yeah.
We're going to make you
We're going to read the ding-dang book. It's all right.
And not read meta strategies on the
no
current
more of your
state of the
speed run
cards.
tactics bullshit. You're gonna sit down and you're gonna read a fucking book,
Yeah,
Gino.
I mean, someone
you're gonna like
someone
it.
probably takes an identification card out of a wallet somewhere in that book, so it has content that will interest Gino. No one says the phrase Dark Souls or Metroidvania, so it also is not going to put you off too bad.
There's no cards, Jeff. Anyways, I feel like we've gotten completely off the rails.
I mean,
Off the deep end.
yeah, if you will.
But here's the weird thing. I forgot to ask before we started recording this, what is our next game?
Well, this is a topic
Do
of
we have
discussion.
a second recommendation, or are we...
I mean, we were thinking about doing another interstitial episode, but maybe a special one for the holidays.
Yeah, a little, let's call it what it is. Something simple because we want to take a holiday break, but we're going to give you content.
I'm going to play the Technomancer on stream because I hate myself.
Sicko. Streamers with your...
It's one
So,
of the better
Jeff,
ones.
what are we playing? next episode.
So this is what I want to propose. Take it, get in the mouthfeel, chew on it, tell me what you think. Something simple, something we can get through, probably. Something that is foundational. I think it meets a lot of boxes for us. And it's something that I think the main pod would also not play, despite I think there being a good case for it. Dragon Quest 1, the first one. So here's my case. That game, if you play a non-Famicom stroke NES release of it, is damn near 6 hours long. It's
9 to 6 hours, if I recall correctly.
Like, you will probably finish it.
Can you give us a recommended platform for Dragon Quest 1?
The Switch version is $5.
Yeah, that one's probably good. I will say the Game Boy Color version of that game is surprisingly good. That is probably my preferred way to do it. Gives you a little bit of that 8-bit feel. I think the sprite work in that Switch release is quite bad. That said, it's the same sprite work that's in the Android releases, or all mobile releases. And I played through all of Dragon Quest 2 on my Android phone, and that seems like a totally viable way to play those games as well. And Dragon Quest 1 is simple enough that you'd have even fewer problems.
Wasn't there a Super Nintendo port of Dragon Quest 1?
I'm glad you asked, because there is. The thing about that Switch stroke Android version is it's kind of sprite work from hither and yon. There's some of the SNES stuff survived. Some of it is like downgraded SNES and then actual SNES. The Game Boy Color versions are kind of like downgraded Super Nintendo games in a lot of ways. And I think the math has been adjusted several times over the years. Like I said, maybe don't play the original release of it. It's a little slow.
What if I booted up my MSX emulator?
Maybe don't do that. Or maybe do. I don't know. Hurt yourself. We don't need to finish this game either. Like you kind of get the idea.
No, if it's 9 to 8 hours, that's fine. I wonder how Satellaview emulation
I'll tell.
is.
Here's my nickname for this game. It is called Get to Level 25, the game. That's because by the time you get to about that level, all of the math breaks in your favor, including the final boss. Like you are pretty much unkillable. So
I forget. Is the Super Nintendo version of the game considered good?
Yeah, it's all right. Famitsu gave it like a 38 or something, so of course it's good. That's a fine way to experience. Arguably the best looking, too. So you got that going. So that's what I propose.
I heard mixed things about the quality of the Switch port.
Yeah, I just think it's kind of ugly. But the price is right. Hard to argue with that.
All right, maybe I'll play a different version. But yeah, no, this sounds...
Okay. Well, I was worried that you were going to say something different, but tactics over bullshit.
Yeah.
Oh, glory of Heracles.
Still sitting, I have this copy of Ogre Battle 64 from my library that
I would like to play Ogre Battle 64 at some point.
It's not going to fit the Christmas chart topping single schedule that we're going for here. We're going for simple. So, Dragon Quest 1, that'll be the next one. We'll put it on the list. I'm feeling it's going to get above the mediocrity line, if not by a ton.
Remember, years and years ago when Google did an April Fool's joke where they did the Google Doodle and it was Dragon Warrior?
I do. It's a fun
man. We also need to play Final Fantasy VI on top of this game.
Chris, you should play the Journeyman Project.
Eat my ass.
You should play the Journeyman Project. It's really bad first-person mist.
I know what the Journeyman Project is. The problem is that the only real reliable version of that game to play nowadays is the remaster, and it's $10, and I ain't fucking paying $10 for the Journeyman Project.
That is one of the first PC games I ever played.
I bought Chris for his birthday. I bought him a copy of a game we might cover in the future.
Is that going to be a Kosoge pick?
It might be in a similar vein to the game we just played.
You might bribe a new member of the Discord to say your game because corruption.
No, I might just say this next time we do a Kosoge, or next time I want to cause
bodily harm.
Pain.
Yeah,
cannot emphasize enough. If you are in the Discord, you know that my next game pick is very good. It's not a bad.
I'm excited for your next game pick.
Yeah, I picked it up on a major online retailer for very cheap, ready to go. So yeah, we will be doing that, kicking off next year, and then getting to fan requests as they come in. We'll probably be soliciting those straight from the Discord, unless they show up by email.
We have multiple people, like Gino can pick, M can pick, Doyle can pick, Relkin can pick. That's everyone.
Gino's going to pick fucking Legend of Legaia or something.
Yeah, probably. Jatsu keeps saying he joined the Discord, but he doesn't, calling you out.
Yeah, I mean, Gino can tell us to do whatever we want, but Gino got something in the physical mail from me that'll make him think twice about being a dick. That's all we've got today. Hey, thanks for listening to this show, nice people. And whatever approximate end of solar calendar stuff you do at the end of your year, whatever it is, I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're around people you like.
Have a very merry non-denominational holiday.
Yeah, have a very unspecified winter solstice thing.
Hail Satan.
Yeah, I'm gonna make me a big pile of pork belly, like a good Scandinavian for Yule. That's what I'm doing. We'll probably have a show up before then, but in case things get weird, that's my plan.
Blood for the blood god.
Super Sex 420.
Yes, we'll talk about Super Sex 420. Did you know that Super Sex 420 is the musician behind the hit song Halfway? Well, what's that, you're wondering? It's the song that opens this show. It's called Halfway. It's available on bandcamp.com. You should check that out.
It's a jam.
If you want to get in touch with us, inquiries at deep.lol. Go to patreon.com/deeplistens. Kick in literally $1, any amount, and get you access to a Discord. Holler at us there. It'll be a good time. Everyone will have a good time. We'll play Dragon Quest 1. I think that game is a pretty good, simple time. Braden, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jeff.
Chris, thank you for the gift of your time.
Is a belly button considered an orifice?
Yeah.
No. That opens up my horizons.
Please look
It's
forward.
a vessel. Think about it. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, there's no such thing as cheating in a single-player game. Bye.
Old school game magazines are written by a bunch of hacks, bunch of dumb shit, people in their 20s, and like older people who were working in magazines and just being like, I don't know, I think Tower of Jiraga's a good video game.
Tower of Jiraga's a good anime. Don't know about the video game.
Yeah.
Jeff, join my blood
Bye.
pack. Watch the anime with me.
Okay, new ending. This goes in just as in.
Bye.
And remember, Secret of the Stars is exactly like a good episode of X-Files. Good stuff. 100%.
7 out of 10.
Yeah, buddy. Bye.